geography, plains, and Plato. In the year 1811, the crew of the British frigate Sabrina was sailing the waters near the Azores when they spotted something strange. Smoke and explosions rising from the Atlantic Ocean. Captain James Tillard, suspecting a sea battle ahead, ordered the ship to steer closer. What they discovered was far more extraordinary. An underwater volcano was violently birthing itself from the seafloor, pushing steam and rocks into the air. In a matter of days, a new island had emerged from the waves. Captain Tillard wasted no time. He rowed ashore, planted the Union Jack, and claimed the smoking rock for Britain, naming it Sabrina Island after his ship. It was a bold move and a slightly awkward gesture. The island had surfaced mere miles from São Miguel, within waters Portugal had long regarded as its own. The sudden appearance of British colours on fresh Atlantic territory caused more than a few raised eyebrows in Lisbon. As an aside, the timing mattered. During the Napoleonic Wars from 1803 to 1815, Britain and Portugal were close allies, and neither side wanted to strain that relationship. In the end, nature settled the dispute. The relentless waves tore it apart, piece by piece. The island was made of loose volcanic material, and within a month the island had slipped back beneath the surface, leaving behind only a shallow underwater mound. Today, Sabrina Island exists solely as one of history's phantom islands. Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm Semra. In this episode, I want to ask you this. What shapes us more? The shores we can see or the waves we don't? The very same restless ocean that briefly gave us Sabrina Island had long before pushed up the 9 main islands of the Azores. However, for centuries, they existed only in that hazy space between legend and geography. Plenty of medieval maps showed phantom islands scattered across the Western Ocean, shapes with names that changed almost as often as the wind. Sailors often returned with tales of blue islands that seemed to disappear at the horizon as one tried to approach. Were these stories even real? Prince Henry the Navigator took that question seriously. From Sagres, he sent ship after ship into the unknown. In 1432, one of his captains, Gonzalo Velho Cabral, reached the shore of a mysterious green island on Assumption Day. It felt like a divine discovery. Overwhelmed, the crew fell on their knees and named it Santa Maria. We now know they weren't the first ones. Sediment analysis reveals traces of human activity dating back long before the Portuguese arrived. Even the house mice on the islands carry DNA hinting at earlier visitors, possibly from northern Europe. Settlers from mainland Portugal arrived in successive waves. Forests were cleared, sometimes very aggressively. Villages were built, and herds of cattle and goats roamed the rich black soil. This was a difficult but necessary adaptation in these times, to a life in the middle of the ocean. These 9 islands stayed despite constantly being shaped by wind and sea, and yet they were born of the same ocean as Sabrina Island. The difference feels obvious when you look at them now, but standing there at the moment of their arrival, it may not have been obvious at all. Nowhere is the mix of geology and legends more visible than inside the caldera of CICADES on São Miguel. Within the crater, 2 lakes sit side by side, one deep blue, the other emerald green. Locals still share the story of Princess Antilia, whose eyes were as blue as the sky, and a shepherd whose eyes were as green as the surrounding hills. They fell in love, but their love was not permitted. So they met one final time in the valley below. Legend says the lakes were born from their tears, blue and green. Two bodies of water that never quite touch, yet from above they look like they should. On some mornings, when the wind falls silent, the surface looks like a mirror. You can sit by the water's edge with a book and let the silence settle until the boundary between real and unreal almost fades away. And then you read. For in those days the Atlantic was navigable, and there was an island situated in front of the straits, which are by you called the Pillars of Heracles. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, and it was the way to other islands, and from these you might pass to the whole of the opposite continent, which surrounded the true ocean. You close the book, yet the words refuse to leave you. The same Atlantic that reveals some stories and washes others away. Stand at the western edge of FAIAL, and the view still feels unreal. A wide field of black ash stretches outward like a desert. Rising from it, the old Capelinhos lighthouse, its base swallowed by volcanic sand, its light now drifting over a coastline that did not exist when it was built. In September 1957, the ocean began again to steam and boil. Within hours, a new volcano erupted. In the weeks that followed, a new island rose from the water, and the locals called it Ilha Nova, New Island. For a time it stood apart, a black cone surrounded by boiling sea. Like on Sabrina Island, the waves tore it apart before it could properly take shape. But the eruption itself continued for 13 months. More ash and more lava. Gradually the growing mass pushed outward until it fused with the coast of FAIAL itself. What had briefly been an island became something more stable, a new extension of land. Ash fell like endless black snow across western FAIAL. Fields vanished and rooftops collapsed under meters of volcanic sand. Constant earthquakes trembled in the nights. In the village of Capelinhos, families, like that of farmer and fisherman Manuel Silva, watched their world turn dark. One night, as the horizon glowed red, Manuel gathered his wife Rosa and their 3 small children and took what they could carry and left. Behind them the horizon burned, ahead nothing was certain. No one died from the Capelinhos eruptions, but thousands lost their homes and were left with nothing to return to. Then across the ocean a door opened. In 1958, the United States passed the Azores Refugee Act, supported by Senators John Pastor and John F. Kennedy. The following year, the Silva family joined thousands of others and crossed the Atlantic to start again in Providence, Rhode Island. The beginning was hard, a new language and bitter winters. Manuel found work on the docks. Rosa rebuilt a sense of home, cooking familiar food, and their children grew up between 2 cultures and carrying a past few around them fully understood. Some mornings, Manuel still woke before dawn, out of habit, as if the ocean were just beyond the door. For a moment everything felt unchanged, and then it didn't. Back on FAIAL, the land slowly settled into its new form. The coastline had grown. The fields, in many places, never returned. Villages were half gone, some abandoned. The lighthouse remained, though forever changed. And the story became something visitors could walk across. Some things don't disappear. They just change shape. On PICO Island, the first notification ping before sunrise these days. Traditional Vidyas still watch from their lookout points, but now they send coordinates rather than shouting across the water. For generations, the same knowledge of the sea provided an entirely different life and the strange, intimate experience of being pulled across the Atlantic by a creature many times your size. The wisdom passed from father to son was almost philosophical. It required a deep respect for the ocean. When commercial whaling ended in the Azores, an entire way of life had been retired by a changing world, and with it a deep sense of loss. Now, when the boats reach the spot with unusual water movement, and the engines stop, voices instinctively lower. Everyone is scanning the water for clues. Some ripples appear that don't match the wind. The boat holds its distance as if an invisible boundary has been agreed upon. Suddenly, the whale appears and moves with effortless grace, then slips back into the depth. For a few moments, everything feels perfectly still. And whatever has changed in this encounter has happened almost entirely on our side. The whale simply continues its own old rhythm, as it always had, indifferent to the brief presence of humans. Most people have never heard its name, but meteorologists know it well. The Azores High, a semi-permanent area of high pressure that quietly conducts much of the weather across the North Atlantic and Western Europe. We never see it. Yet, it decides whether storms move toward Britain over the Mediterranean, whether Portugal enjoys another mild winter or faces drought. Like so many of the forces that truly shape our lives, its influence is felt long before it is noticed. It reminds me that we all are, in our own way, sailors on the sea. We imagine our lives as a series of choices, when in truth, deeper forces are already at work. Emotional undercurrents, or even the chemistry of our bodies, shaping the weather of our days. Sometimes the pressure simply shifts, and for a fleeting moment we glimpse the larger currents moving beneath us. An island rises like a sudden idea, and vanishes before we can grasp it. Two lakes lie side by side, bound by an old promise. People come and people go. Above it all, invisible pressures are quietly deciding what will remain. And in that space between what we perceive and what is already in motion, a direction begins to form. And we are left with the same question: where did it really begin? Thank you for drifting through the Azores with me tonight. Good night